courtesy of the Willow Tin Group, at the forefront of innovation, and one of the leading competitors in the South African FMCG market.
Hi, my name is Rhea from Dubai, and I listen to the Breakfast Rush Radio Al-Ansar.
Thank you very much, Rhea from Dubai, for listening into the Breakfast Rush on Radio Al-Ansar, broadcasting from HQ in Durban, South Africa. If you're watching the video right now, assalamu alaikum to you. Thank you very much for doing that. Press the share button, make the circle bigger. Topic of conversation today with our attorney is something that is directed toward the older members of society, because quite often the topics we deal with in this segment are inspired by questions that have been sent through by our loving listeners. And today we're going to deal with the topic of children stealing their parents' houses. This topic is specifically targeted toward the older listeners, intending to advise them of their rights. Brother Altaaf, Raoof, assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam. Assalamu alaikum to our listeners.
What inspired this topic today?
So, we've been doing this segment for going on 3 years now.
Yeah.
Right. And in that period, we've had a number of these legal clinics where we offer the free legal advice. And a couple of times, questions of this nature have come up at those legal clinics. Besides this, I am involved in a couple of other initiatives where we give free legal advice. And this actually seems to be a very common theme and a very common topic of what's happening.
Yes.
And it's concerning. Now, whenever we've given this advice, all that we've done is offer free advice, nothing else.
No litigation.
No litigation assistance was being offered. And, it is a pity because some of these stories are truly heartbreaking. I mean, there was one involving an old lady who was in her late 80s who came for advice. And all we could do was advise her because none of us were in a position to actually take the matter on. And, topics like this are best understood when you have a case study. It makes it easier to understand.
Yes.
So picture this. You've got a 72-year-old female, right? She's well and alive. She's living her life, active, on her feet every day, going out, doing whatever needs to be done, coming back home, sorting life out. And she lives in her own home. And this home is perhaps her only asset.
Yeah.
And when I say own home, I mean that she has the title deed. She's not renting.
Yeah.
The home belongs to her. The title deed's on her name. And one sunny day, one of her kids comes to visit her and has lunch and, gives her some papers and tells her to sign it. And, she doesn't know what this is.
She doesn't know what it is. Yeah.
She just signs the papers. And next thing she knows, she's no longer the owner of the house and she's been kicked out. And the other very common example is the kids want their shares.
Yeah.
Now, this one I find particularly annoying.
Yeah.
And, it's been annoying to me for a number of years. For the simple reason that your share, in inverted commas, only arises when this person is deceased. Whilst this person is still alive, you have absolutely no claim against them or against their property or against anything that they own.
Indeed.
Now, what sort of paperwork would be placed before a person if the situation is arising?
Now, the first thing, and this is general advice to anybody and everybody out there who's listening, never ever sign anything without reading and understanding what you are signing. This is life in general. Because the minute you place your signature on a document, there's a Latin phrase, caveat subscriptor, essentially translates to let the signatory beware.
Right.
Because if you sign something, you are held liable to your signature and you're held accountable to your signature, which is there on that document. Now, the usual documents that would be used in one of these scenarios are, firstly, a purchase and sale agreement, and secondly, a power of attorney document. Now, the purchase and sale agreement would obviously indicate that you want to sell the house and this is the price, etc. And the power of attorney document, so if you grant me a power of attorney, it means that any action that I do in your name is accepted as if that action had been done by you.
Mhm.
Now, if you have no intention of selling your house, you obviously should not be signing any papers at all of this nature.
Correct. What would an attorney, what would be needed by the attorney to transfer the property?
Now, in order to transfer the property, you need a specialized attorney called a conveyancer.
Right.
Conveyancers deal with property transfers, property-related transactions.
Mm.
Now, attorneys are required to exercise necessary due diligence
Mhm.
when it comes to transfers of properties.
Right.
Now, my personal belief and the way I would do this if I was a conveyancer,
Mhm.
if the parties are related and I can see that one of these people is an elderly person,
Mhm.
I would exercise a higher degree of caution.
Absolutely.
Because I would want to call in and sit down with this person and make sure that they understand
Mm.
what is going on by them proceeding with this transaction. I may lose a few clients here and there,
Mhm.
or some clients unhappy with that,
Mm.
but I honestly believe that this extra degree of caution should be exercised.
Now, earlier you mentioned the concept of wanting their shares. What is this?
So when a person is deceased, their estate must now be wound up.
Mm.
Now, your estate is essentially everything that you owned, less whatever liabilities that you had. Whatever's left over forms your estate. Now, the winding up is done either via a will or via interstate succession. So this share is the portion of the deceased estate that you are entitled to either via the will or via interstate succession.
So if the property has been transferred, can somebody simply go to the residence and just tell them to leave?
Well, most certainly not. So, firstly, you would need to give them proper notice. You would need to officially inform them that, listen, I am the new owner of the property. This is how I'm the new owner of the property. I'm now giving you notice to leave. Depending on the circumstances, that could be 1 month, could be 2 months. It varies depending on the circumstances. And if they refuse to leave, you need to bring eviction proceedings. You can't simply rock up there with 5 burly guys and say, we're taking all your stuff and we're leaving it on the road outside. That's not how the law works.
If a person is faced with a situation of this nature, what is your advice to them?
Now, if you are faced with a situation of this nature, or if you're in a situation of this nature, you need to act very quickly. You need to approach an attorney and you need to get assistance from an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, there are various options available to you. You can approach Legal Aid South Africa. You can approach probono.org. You can approach the university law clinics. There are a number of avenues which you can get legal assistance if you cannot afford one. Now, if you have signed these papers and the transfer has gone through, or rather the transfer is pending, meaning the transfer hasn't gone through yet, the house is still on your name, you should be seeking an urgent interdict to prevent the transfer from going through, which would be pending an application to set aside the power of attorney and purchase and sale agreement on the basis that you were duped into it. Alternatively, you were pressurized into doing it or something of that nature. And if the transfer has gone through, you now need to seek a reversal of the transfer. So your papers are going to cite the new owner, they're going to cite the registrar of deeds, etc.
Yeah.
And you're very likely also going to have to obtain an interim interdict against any eviction until the application to set aside the transfer has been decided upon. This is just me thinking ahead when I offer this advice.
Yes.
Because I am currently dealing with something of a similar nature, and it's nice to be prepared for what's possibly going to come.
I'm going to assume that these are very costly measures to undertake.
Okay, so an urgent application generally is going to cost you probably between 25 and 30,000 rand.
Yeah.
Right. That's an urgent unopposed application. An urgent opposed application depends on the advocate who's being used. If you are using an advocate, depends on the attorney who's being used. That can easily escalate to 50,000-60,000 rand.
Yeah.
Application to set aside either the purchase and sale agreement or to reverse the transfer. Unopposed application, you're probably looking at about 15 to 20,000 rand. Opposed application, again, you're looking at probably 50,000-60,000
And these are
rand.
minimum numbers.
Minimum numbers.
Exactly. Listener sends through a WhatsApp message now, making an observation and, to an extent, an assumption, saying, does this not also involve a corrupt attorney? No comment.
I'm not going to comment on that because I made the comment earlier that my belief is that an attorney involved in a transaction of this nature should exercise a higher degree of diligence.
Yeah.
That attorney is not necessarily corrupt. I mean,
they're just acting on behalf of their client.
All of the necessary paperwork is put in front of you,
Yeah.
and the paperwork has legitimate signatures on it.
Yeah.
Realistically speaking, you have no reason to doubt that paperwork.
There you go.
All I'm saying is exercise slightly high degree of
Caution.
diligence.
Yeah. Another one from a listener says, Salams, how much is the transfer fee? I suppose
Okay, so I'm not a conveyancer.
Yeah.
To my understanding, the transfer fee depends on the value of the property.
Here's another question. Now says, is power of attorney needed to be signed to transfer of a house?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because when the actual deeds office work is done, you don't appear at the deeds office.
Right.
Somebody appears on your behalf, and that person has the power of attorney.
Okay, here's one from a listener that says, Salams, what does one do if the house was fraudulently transferred without the consent of the executor and no sequence of transfer was followed? The court instructed the people to do a reversal of the transfer, but was not done.
Okay, so the reversal of the transfer would have been ordered to the Registrar of Deeds. Now, if the Registrar of Deeds has not effected that reversal as yet, I would advise to firstly write to the Registrar of Deeds, because I've never heard of the Registrar of Deeds not complying with an order of this nature. So write to the Registrar of Deeds, inform them, here's a copy of the order, what's going on, why hasn't the reversal taken place as yet? And if necessary, because you have a court order, you can, if that court order, provided that court order has been served on the necessary people, you can bring a contempt application.
Final one from our listeners now says, Salams, please explain, can clauses be added on title deed after the demise of the owner, property be registered on one person, but add a clause for others to occupy the residence on certain terms?
Okay, so there's something called a usufruct.
Right.
So essentially, I could have a will that says that when I am deceased, the property is going to go to Nishal with the condition that Zach is allowed to live on the property for as long as he is unmarried. So if Zach chooses to never get married, he can live there until the day he dies.
Right.
If Zach gets married at age 30,
right,
when he is married, it's now time for him to move out because the usufruct has been fulfilled.
There you go. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, now that we're asking questions, can the deal be revised if the house was on auction?
Now, my understanding of auctions is that you bid a specific price.
Yep.
You've seen the house went on auction, and you bidded 2 million rand for the house. To my understanding, you are actually constrained to that 2 million rand, or rather, you're held to the 2 million rand and you can't vary it. If you do want to vary it, you would have to approach the auctioneer, you'd have to approach the owner of the house, because all of these people would be affected by a change in the purchase price.
There you go. Altaaf, if somebody wants to contact you directly and ask a question or two, how would they do that?
You can drop me an email. My email address is altaaf@raooflaw.co.za. I'll give it to you again, altaaf@raooflaw.co.za. Might take a day or two, but I will drop you a response. And, while we're on that topic, often listeners search for me, Google me, whatever.
Right.
And they get my personal number.
That's
if you message me at 10:30 at night, I'm not going to respond to you.
It's a bit late.
Right.
Office hours ends at, I would say 4:30.
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
Right. If you message me at 11 o'clock at night,
Mm.
I'm not going to respond to you. Right? And, there's a certain etiquette when you're messaging somebody for the first time. Good morning, my name is so-and-so. I obtained your contact details from a certain place. May I speak to you about a certain matter? Not just send me a long bayan with no introduction of any sort. It's common courtesy.
It's courtesy.
It's common etiquette.
Yeah. Okay, so and that being said, folks, remember, Altaaf is not employed by Al Ansar, the radio station, by any of the subsidiaries. He's here doing this with no charge to our listeners. So again, Altaaf, we appreciate your time as well, and the valuable information you bring to our listeners. Wish you a wonderful day.
Pleasure as always. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much as well to everybody that's been watching the video on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course, videos stay there perpetually, I think. So you could always go back and reference today's program where we were talking about kids stealing parents' homes and a few topics related as well. So you could always go back, watch the video, reference the answer, get in touch with Altaaf, send him that email and ask further questions if need be. Thank you very much for today. Naz, that's it for the show as well.
Until tomorrow in studio, be the best version of you.
Do good. Be good. Have a wonderful day.
The Breakfast Rush, brought to you courtesy of the Willow Tin Group, at the forefront of innovation.